My question is to the Deputy Prime Minister. How does he reconcile his earlier statement that the likelihood of the government adopting net zero is zero to his changed public answers this week supporting net zero for the regions? And does he agree with the member for Gippsland who said, "I think Michael's removal from office was the greatest act of political treachery in our party in 100 years. I said at the time, and I believe that today, it was all about personal ambition. It wasn't a policy."
The first part of that question, the member for Barton, the first part of that question is in order. The latter part, 2/3 of it, relating to the former Deputy Prime Minister, is out of order. The Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'm only too happy to answer the honourable member's question because within the Coalition and within the Nationals, we diligently went through the process, as we've always said, to make sure that it was something that was that looked after people in regional areas, sort of regional areas, the regional areas where I hope that you would clearly understand them. And one of the big things we were looking for, Mr Speaker, when we did that, because it was incredibly important that we checked for it and went through it, we wanted to make absolutely certain that there was no legislation in there that enforced things, because we don't believe in penalties. They believe in penalties. They believe that the state reigns supreme over the individual. We believe that the individual rises above the state. They believe in penalties and enforcements, and you're part of that. They believe in legislation. Legislation brings in laws. Laws are enforced by penalties. And those laws and penalties put coal workers at threat, put meat workers at threat, put the people in the Hunter Valley at threat, put the people of Central Queensland at threat. It's legislation that they're looking out for, and we were making sure that the people of Central Queensland are safe, that the people of the Hunter Valley are safe, and we diligently went through that process, Mr Speaker. We went through that process so that we could go forward with a plan that stands for the people of business. We believe the inspiration of the individual and the smarts of the individual to rise above the enforcements of the Labor Party, the red tape of the Labor Party, all the obstructions of the Labor Party, and finally the unemployment of the Labor Party.
The member for O'Connor.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health and Aged Care. Will the Minister please update the House on Australia's vaccine rollout and how it's providing protection for all, including older Australians?
The Minister for Health and Aged Care.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I want to thank the member for O'Connor for his work for people right across his electorate, including towns such as Kojonup, which has a 90% vaccination rate and which was also able to establish a first-class medical centre with his support, with the support of the community and with the matching support of the Community Health and Hospitals program. Kojonup, of course, is an example of one of the thousands of towns and communities around Australia that have continued to have been vaccinated at record levels. We've now reached 87.1% of the country with a first dose and 74.1% of the country that has had a second dose. And we do this knowing that the pandemic continues around the world with over 414,000 cases in the last 24 hours, with over 6,600 lives lost in the last 24 hours. These are numbers that are profound and significant, and we need to focus on those human impacts. And that's why what we have done in this country with the small towns and the suburbs, with the communities and the cities coming together, has been a great Australian achievement and story. One of the most important parts of that is what we've been able to do in protecting our older Australians. We've now achieved, for our over 50s, 94.5% of first doses. For our over 60s, 96.5%, and extraordinarily, and as one of our great national achievements, for our most vulnerable Australians, for our over 70s, in terms of the coronavirus pandemic and the risks that they face, a 98.5% first dose vaccination rate. That is a rate which around the world stands at the absolute highest and finest. And most importantly, it protects those Australians who are most at risk. And that is backed within our aged care facilities a 99.8% vaccination rate for our aged care workers. There were those that may have doubted this, but we didn't doubt, we delivered. And that's significant. That's the pattern, the hallmark, the nature, the scope of what this government does under this Prime Minister. And so we've been able to achieve those outcomes. And now the next thing is, over the coming days, we'll receive, and I expect to receive, the final advice of the TGA and ATAGI on the booster program, and we'll begin again with our older Australians, and we're ready to support those in residential aged care and then the general population. And so as we go forward, we're continuing to save lives and protect lives.